This is All Things Considered on 90.1 WABE. I'm Dennis O'Hare. New York is not the first state to recognize gay marriage, but it is the biggest so far, and New York's action a few days ago could, of course, prompt other states to do the same. That could pose some problems for gay couples who then move to other states like Georgia, which does not recognize gay marriages. Randy Kessler is an Atlanta family law attorney with the firm of Kessler and Solomiani. He is chair of the family law section of the State Bar of Georgia, and on August 4th, he becomes chair of the family law section of the American Bar Association. Randy Kessler, good to have you.
Thanks for having me, Dennis.
Well, let's take the case of a couple that get married in New York or in any other of the states that recognize gay marriages. They move down here. They decide eventually that marriage isn't all that, at least for them. And now what? They really have some problems, don't they?
They do, and we're going to see that more and more. Of course, we've already seen it since other countries and a few other states recognize gay marriage. But really, Georgia and about 40 other states are sort of handcuffed. We cannot grant a divorce to a couple that was not married in accordance with Georgia laws. And Georgia and most states require that marriage be between a man and a woman. So what that couple really has to do is one of two things. They could go back to the original state and get a divorce, which creates other problems, but that at least gets the property separated. Or they could do workarounds here in Georgia, and it gets so complicated that I've actually become a fan of gay divorce. Maybe not gay marriage, but gay divorce would make things so much easier because there are gay couples that have children together, that have property together, and to disentangle those relationships right now is about as complicated a legal process as there can be.
But if, let's say, Georgia were to say, okay, we can set up a process of untangling a relationship that had been formed in another state, doesn't that raise the question of if you're going to divorce this couple, then you're implicitly recognizing their union, and Georgia law says you can't do that?
That's exactly right. That's why it's such a hard process to disentangle those relationships. Anything that a court does that implicitly or explicitly recognizes a gay relationship is contrary to Georgia law in its current status. So what we're seeing is a dilemma. People are going back to Massachusetts or wherever they got married, getting a divorce of that gay marriage, and then they come here and sometimes have to enforce that gay divorce. And the court has a real dilemma. If we enforce the order, then we are protecting children by making sure that the support is paid and the visitation is granted. But if we do that, we're also then recognizing the gay marriage on which the gay divorce was founded. So there's a big problem for judges in Georgia and elsewhere.
What have you seen happen to kids in Georgia who've been caught up in this?
We've seen some terrible results. We see parents that have raised children together for 10 years, and when they separate, the natural parent, if you have two women that are together, and one was the biological parent and the other was the non-biological parent, the non-biological parent has no legal standing. She cannot say, well, I was the mother because I was the spouse. She's just out, and a lot of times she has a very weak bargaining position, and she may accept limited visitation rights rather than risk getting no visitation rights through the court system. It's just been a terrible burden for children, and it separates families, and it gives people unequal bargaining power. And, the Defense of Marriage Act was really the first time that the federal government said that states do not need to respect each other's laws. Now President Obama is supporting the overturning of DOMA, but for now, that's just a problem that we have. How can the state of Georgia, do something to endorse gay marriage when Georgia doesn't agree or recognize gay marriage? It's just this dilemma that would be solved if Georgia and other states would recognize gay marriage and then gay divorce. And it doesn't really matter politically, religiously, or morally as much to me as it does how do you make sure that this family can function.
Well, you mentioned the Federal Defense of Marriage Act. If the president goes ahead and if DOMA is repealed, what does that do to states like Georgia, which now don't have to recognize gay marriages from other states?
Well, I think that's the first step. I think then the next step would be for Georgia's law and other states' laws to be challenged constitutionally. Right now, Georgia does not have to recognize another state's marriage if it's not between a man and a woman. But if DOMA is overturned, then I think the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution would require that Georgia recognize acts and orders of other states, like a gay marriage or a gay divorce enacted in New York or Massachusetts or one of the other states. Then you'd see some real litigation at the highest levels in the Supreme Court of Georgia and maybe of the United States.
So if DOMA is overturned, even Georgia's situation is about to get very, very complicated.
Yes, and of course people say that there's judicial activism. It seems like Georgia and other states may take a long time before the legislatures will grant or approve gay marriage, but it may be that this is something that's handled through the court system. You know, it may not be that Georgia has to grant marriages to gay people, but it may be that Georgia has to recognize a gay marriage from another state. That is probably the next logical step in the evolution of gay marriage, at least in Georgia and states that don't yet have gay marriage.
So New York's action could really be a catalyst for something a lot broader across the country.
Absolutely. It's going to bring more real-life examples, and that's how laws get changed. They don't get changed in a theoretical way. They get changed by people riding a bus in Alabama and not being willing to sit in the back row, or people standing up to the system. And it's one case that comes to the forefront that changes the law for everybody else.
Randy Kessler is an Atlanta family law attorney. He's the chair of the family law section of the State Bar of Georgia, and on August 4th he'll become the chair of the family law section of the American Bar Association. Randy Kessler, thanks so much for being with us. This is one we'll probably come back to very soon.
Thank you. I've enjoyed being on with you.